to episode number 80 of Inside the Vault, a Carolina Panthers podcast. I am your host, Ryan Smith, and we are preparing for Cardinals Panthers coming up on Sunday out there in State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. And with me today is the host of the Cardinals, Phoenix Cardinals podcast. He's a Cardinals content creator out there. He is a very well-known name. You saw him on Winning the Division, my other podcast as well in our NFC West preview. Let's welcome back here on Inside the Vault, Mr. Bo Brock. Bo, how's it going?
Ryan, great to see you again, man. I'm anxious to see if the Carolina Panthers could bounce back here in week 2 and continue to have Cardinals number, unfortunately.
I was just going to say that they do have the Cardinals number. It seems 15-6 overall record against the Cardinals as a whole. But let's start with a positive note. I want to start here. How are the Cardinals looking injury wise coming into Sunday's game?
Relatively good. This is a team that suffered a couple significant injuries in training camp. One just before training camp, 16th overall pick, first rounder out of Ole Miss. Walter Nolan, we've been kind of robbed of seeing the first rounder here start the season with a calf injury, and then Starling Thomas, a guy who's going to be a rotational corner, but up and coming, going his third year, he was lost for the season with an ACL. But outside of that, the only key member I think of the team that you can kind of note is Tip Ryman. Tip Ryman kind of has a specific role, Ryan, where it's just primary blocking tight end, but like in this run heavy offense, Tip Ryman had a very defined role. He was a bit of a tone setter. He's just going to miss this week with a foot injury. So, but other than that, relatively healthy and at full strength.
Yeah. Panthers, obviously, Turk Wharton out with the hamstring injury, which he did in week 1 against Jacksonville, the loss down there. Other than that, it sounds like everyone else is going to be playing, including the left tackle, Ike Ekwonu, who was out last week with the appendectomy emergency from a few weeks back. So he's officially questionable, but it sounds like, based on what Canales is saying, that he is going to play. So that's obviously really good news for the Panthers going up against that Cardinals front. I am personally very glad not to see Walter Nolan, having been an SEC football watcher. I know exactly what Walter Nolan can do. So I'm actually very glad he's not playing in this game, if I'm being quite honest, even as a rookie. But let's get into it. Before I kind of do some more hardball questions, I'll start out with a little softball for you. On Panthers.com this afternoon, there was a story about our guy, JJ Jansen, long snapper, and then you had Calais Campbell, and they both have played the longest active streaks in the NFL right now in games played. I think Jansen's at 272 and Calais is at 271, or I might have that backwards. They're in that territory. So, what does Calais Campbell mean to this team coming back to where he started his career, and obviously being on the Cardinals for the season?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, he's a big part of this revamped defensive front seven, like we mentioned. Nolan, who we can't watch, but Dalvin Tomlinson made his way over here in free agency, and got Darius Robinson, another former SEC first round pick that's part of this rotation, and it's just a position group that's been down for the last 2 seasons. At times they were like UFL quality. There just wasn't starting caliber players. Calais Campbell, like the point that I'm getting to is at 39 years old, this isn't just like a nice, fond farewell tour. This wasn't him coming back to the team that drafted him to just kind of play one season in the sun and then, ride off into the sunset. Like, I think that this is a guy that can still play at a high level. I think he's really solid, rock solid still against the run. And can he provide, any kind of pop against the pass? I think that remains to be seen at his age, but he's a guy that, he brings the fanfare. He brings, I think the mentorship and the leadership, but also can play at a high level. So it's been cool to see, one game back in the Calais Campbell era after he left after the 2016 season.
Yeah. And in full transparency, I have been to a game in State Farm Stadium out there against the Panthers, ironically, back in the day. That was when Kyle Allen was playing quarterback for the Panthers back in the day. And yes, that was Kyler Murray was a rookie that year. It was a beautiful stadium. I really enjoyed my time there.
Yeah.
And got to see the area. And so, yeah, I'm fascinated about this matchup on Sunday. I think these two teams are not too far apart from each other as we kind of get into the keys to the game. I know Arizona is 1-0, having faced off against the Saints last week in the NFC South as well. And then obviously their second straight NFC South opponent this year, or this week rather, with the Panthers. So let's get into some keys of the game, things that you're kind of
Sure.
watching for. I'll start on the opposite side of the ball for the Panthers. So for you, it would be the defense side for the Cardinals. For me, I would say, obviously Chuba Hubbard gashed the Cardinals in
Mhm.
last season's matchup in overtime, won by the Panthers, and I think he needs to try to do that again. I think getting Chuba going early will be very helpful for Carolina and for Bryce Young. For Bryce Young, I think he needs to obviously cut down on the turnovers, which everybody knows, but I think he just needs to play efficient football. Get the ball out of your hands quickly, and if the pass rush is breaking down, don't be afraid to use those legs that we saw a little bit in Jacksonville last week. And then finally, for the offensive line, I would say obviously Calais Campbell is not a spring chicken, but you got a lot of dangerous pass rushers on that defense. I like what Gannon's been building there in year number three, and so can the offensive line protect Bryce Young consistently? They got after Spencer Rattler quite a few times last week there in New Orleans, so can our offensive line hold up against that pass rush there in Arizona? So those are my three offensive keys for the Panthers.
And can he gash the Arizona Cardinals on the ground? And I think Alvin Kamara had, some success in week one against the Cardinals, and his backup, Kendry Miller, also was solid. And I think the Cardinals wanted a better performance there, and they tooled that defensive front seven to not only get after passers, but also slow down opposing run games. So yeah, I think that's going to be a big emphasis. Gannon and Nick Rallis, defensive coordinator, we're both transparent that they've revisited that game that knocked them out of playoff contention in December last year, and I think that's something that's going to be a big emphasis. As far as Spencer Rattler in that Saints, passing attack, they were able to subdue their pass rush for the most part. Now they didn't keep the pressure completely off of them, but it was a lot of quick hitters. It was a lot of quick hitters and a lot of defensive backs having to come down and tackle some pass catchers, but for the most part, it was, get that ball out quickly. And I can imagine that, Bryce Young is going to be a similar game plan. But I think the Arizona Cardinals defensively are going to try to dial up the pressure and force Young into some mistakes like he did in week one, which he's been no apt to do.
Yep.
They've really kind of retooled this secondary with ball hawking type defensive backs from Garrett Williams, who's going into year three, to Will Johnson, who had a tremendous debut last
Yeah,
year.
I was impressed with him. Yeah.
Yeah, with three pass breakups, and he had a pick that was, nullified by a play far away from the ball. I mean, he basically ran the route for Shaheed and made a tremendous play on the ball. He's got great skills coming out of Michigan, 9 picks in, 2.5 years, and gave up 2 touchdowns and scored 3 of his own on the defensive side of the football. So just a big time player there. Popcorn matchup's going to be Will Johnson versus Tedero McMillan. Can't wait to see that. But I like your keys, and I think it's going to be important. If the Cardinals can slow down the run game, I think they can put themselves in a position at home to win this game.
And then now let's switch over to the offensive side of the ball for the Cardinals, which would be the defensive side for Carolina. I think defensively, it's pretty easy for the Panthers. Don't get gashed in the run game, which it's under this defense. I'm not counting on it happening, but I believe but that's still my number one key. I mean, don't get gashed in the run game by James Conner, who is a mutant still. It seems like he's been on the Cardinals forever at this point. Trey Benson known to do what he did last week as well in a surprising performance, though not surprising if you followed Trey Benson in college, you knew
Sure.
he was capable of this. And then key number two is Kyler Murray. Keep him contained. Don't allow those rush lanes to come flooding open, and don't allow him to elude you downfield if he has to scramble, which he's always known to do. Be a little slippery, as I like to call it. And then key number three, can the Panthers take away Kyler Murray's weapons? Obviously, Jason Horn is probably going to travel with Marvin Harrison Jr. I like that matchup a lot, actually. But for Trey McBride is the one I'm watching for, though, to have a game against Carolina. Brenton Strange for the Jacksonville had a good game last week against them. Another tight end. Trey McBride is obviously much better than he is. So I do think Trey McBride is going to be the key to watch for Carolina's defense. Can they prevent him from having chunk plays over the middle and obviously, even scoring in the red zone?
Yeah, right. Actually, my key or my offensive stand out of the game, I picked Trey McBride. on my own show, PHNX Cardinals, and I just think that that's a matchup that they can try to expose. I mean, I know about the weakness of the Panthers defense. It's well documented. 7 straight games over 200 yards allowed, including the Cardinals game way back when. And I think it's important to remember, like the Panthers won that game because, even though James Conner was able to get whatever he wanted and the offense kind of took a hit when he exited that
He
game.
did exit.
Uh,
Yep.
yeah, I think it's important to establish the run. I think it's something that they weren't able to do in week one. I think they had some. You mentioned Trey Benson, he had a 52-yard explosive that kind of juiced those stats because for the most part they would have been under 100, and you would have noticed that they all three of them from outside of Kyler Murray. I mean, all the both backs struggled to really find consistent yards on the ground, but that's one of their calling cards as an offense. That's their identity, and I think they want to regain that. But the difference maker from last December was when Kyler Murray needed to dial up, that passing attack. They weren't able to do it consistently enough to push the ball downfield, to move the chains. I don't doubt that that's going to be really kind of tested again this Sunday. But is the kind of new connection, not or I guess renewed connection, I guess matured and developed connection between him and Marvin Harrison Jr. going to be good enough to be the difference maker between last matchup and the Sundays? What we saw from 1 week of play, it looks pretty good. I mean, between him and MHJ, they connected on 5 of 6 targets, 71 yards and a touchdown, and added a big 45-yard explosive to kind of kick things off that kind of sparked the offense. So that passing attack can consistently, connect throughout the game and supplement that run game that I think they're pretty confident that they can get going against the Panthers defense, really kind of looking for it as far as slowing down opposing rushes.
Yeah. It's interesting because when I think about this game, I really just like Jacksonville actually last week, I think it's going to come down to the trenches. Can the offensive lines for both teams hold up and establish those run lanes for the running backs to kind of do their thing? And that opens up, obviously the play action in the basket. I think that's what it's going to
Mm-hmm.
come down to. Trenches once again. I like the Panthers matchup in the eyes of the offensive line. Defensive line, we'll see. Derek Brown obviously wasn't available last year, so obviously he's a big man on the inside there that will be there this year for Carolina. But kind of switching away though, as we've obviously established our keys, let's talk about kind of what's something we're not I'll throw this out there. What's something we're not talking about when it comes to the Cardinals? And then I'll give you one for Carolina. But going into this game, like you said, week one, some people like to say week one's a liar. Like we don't really
Sure.
know what week one is. Week two, you got to prove it again, and you got to see what a new team brings. So what is something about Arizona that maybe Panther fans should know going into this game, or something that maybe the mainstream media doesn't talk about as much when it comes to?
I think the improvement of this defense. I mean, I know that we saw in Charlotte last year, touchdowns scored aplenty from both teams, and in Carolina coming out with that game in overtime. But that's the outlier for the most part since week 7 of last year. Cardinals had this bend don't break defense, and it kind of parlayed it into it, especially with some additions this offseason, to where I think that you're going to see them kind of move towards maybe a top 10 unit. This is a team, Ryan, that has surrendered the least amount of total touchdowns in the NFL since week 7. Whether it's passing, I mean, they're number one as far as least amount of touchdown passes surrendered during that time. And they've just been really good as far as not giving up, big plays and just not giving up, that many big time scores. I mean, it's been for the most part, the bend don't break. And now I think with the improvement in the front 7 and the secondary, they've got the ability to get off the field. They couldn't get off the field in Carolina last year. That was a big time issue. And I think, you look at the Saints and people can overlook them, and rightfully so. They're going to be one of the worst teams in the league. But just surrendering 13 points and then surrendering the amount of points, with the Carolina game being the outlier. Their defense is gonna put them in a lot of positions to win football games.
Yeah, and I would say on the side of the Panthers, I would say it's got to be the offensive line. I don't think, I mean, now I think offensive line is probably the Panthers' number one depth in the entire all positions on their roster. You couldn't say that just like even last year. We got the two additions in Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis, but if they went down, it was kind of like we're screwed. So this
Yeah.
year we added, we were able to bring back all nine offensive linemen from last year, top nine. That's unheard of across the NFL. And so,
Yeah.
if somebody goes down, there's going to be somebody there to pick them up. And so, this unit's already top 10 after week one. I think they were in the top seven, I want to say, in overall grade. But this unit can be a top 10 unit, maybe even top five, if especially in rushing, if they can continue the output from week one. So, as we head into this game on Sunday, here, Bo Brock from PHNX Cardinals podcast here on Inside the Vault. Joining me here, Bo. When it comes to this game on Sunday, what is, if you had to boil it down to who is the player on the Cardinals that needs to be the main factor for the Cardinals to come away with the victory?
I mean, is it too chalk to say Kyler Murray? I mean,
No,
I
it's
think
not.
it's I think very important. It's pivotal that the franchise quarterback has a solid game. I think he's going to be one of the guys that felt like he let that game in Charlotte last year kind of slip through his fingertips. Had a crucial pick down the stretch there as the team was driving down. I think to potentially put itself in a position to win the game.
Yeah.
But they took the game tying field goal as time expired for the most part. But I think he sees this as kind of a redemption game, and you want to see him close to his best self. He was added late injury report before the season opener with a stomach illness, and went
Right.
out there and had 2 touchdowns. But Kyler said he was frustrated that the offense didn't put that game on ice in the second half. So they're motivated. They're not just saying, hey, we're 1-0 with a good opportunity to go against the team that struggled in week one to go to 2-0. I think Kyler's going to enjoy playing in front of the home crowd, and less hostile environment, and hopefully kind of get this offense that, you talk about the offensive line continuity with Carolina. The Cardinals have it, their entire offense. There just isn't much changes. There was no wholesale changes on this offense from 2024 to 2025. It's mostly copy and paste. You got to see the improved chemistry there between Kyler and his playmakers, and I think it's going to come down to K1 to do that.
Yeah. What do you think? I mean, I know this. Well, oh, I'm sorry. For me, I would say for the Panthers, I think Bryce is going to cut down on those turnovers. But I'm gonna go the run defense. I think the run defense has got to minimize the damage in order for the Panthers defense to get off the field on third downs and efficiently give this offense back the ball. Because I think Bryce is going to be a lot better than he was last week. I think the turnovers aren't going to be as much of a factor this week, and I think he's going to be able to score the ball. The question is whether the defense can actually get off the field. Can they actually give the offense maybe create a turnover or two, force a Kyler fumble, interception, or what have you? And can this offense have short fields that leads to playing with the lead, and then Chuba Hubbard late in the game can kind of run the ball as he likes to do, and the defense can not allow a 100-yard rusher for the first time
Yeah.
in a long time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say for the run defense myself. You mentioned at the top of the podcast that it does seem like the Panthers have had the Cardinals number.
Mm-hmm.
Is someone who follows the team closely and obviously does podcasts, is there something that you can contribute that to? Like, what do you think that is? Like, because I'm baffled too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like of all the teams, the Chargers and the Cardinals are the two teams that Panthers seem to typically do well against. The Cardinals is the AFC side, of course.
Right.
What is it about the Panthers if the Cardinals just can't hack?
I mean, it's are they isolated incidents? I think for the most part, the Cardinals in the 2014 playoffs, they face they're down to the third string quarterback. That's one of them.
Ryan Lindley. I remember
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
Ryan Lindley. You've got they ran into the buzzsaw that was the 2015 team in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, we won't talk about that next game. Keep going.
Right. But look, I mean, it was as impressive a dismantling as I've seen. What was it, 48-15, 49-15?
49-15, yep.
Yeah, it was a disaster class. And then, like, I remember the return of Cam, right? I mean, they go in there and it's like PJ Walker and Cam Newton, and they roll in.
Oh, yes.
But it was mostly, to me, it was that game was Hassan Reddick. Hassan Reddick came in immediately and made an impact against his former team, and in the front seven just wreaked havoc, and the offense took advantage of short fields. It's just like it's good game planning, and it's catching the Cardinals on a bad day. And the Cardinals can't suffer that here. I think that they have a slight edge as far as where they are in their rebuild. They're at home, and I think that they should have to take advantage of this game. I just there's be some fallout. There'd be some picking up the pieces if they suffer another one to the Panthers come this Sunday.
Yeah. When it comes to a successful season for Arizona, what does that look like in there in Glendale? Because I mean, year three for Jonathan Gannon and this staff. I really like Drew Petzing and what he's been able to do on the offensive side of the ball. But can you guys take this division? Can you be a wild card team? Or what is success defined as for the 2025 Cardinals?
And yes, right? I mean, to both of those, you've seen the erosion of the San Francisco 49ers, and I think nationwide people are starting to catch up on that. They've really bet on some players that are oft injured, guys a little bit longer in the tooth to NFL standards. And you're starting to see, they're going to have to rely on Mac McCorkle-Jones for the next couple of weeks at the quarterback position. Christian McCaffrey's still, I think, trying to make his way back from Achilles issues. And
We know about that in Carolina, yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, that he spends a lot of time in the training room. Trent Williams is not in a good spot. So like George Kittle's going to miss the next couple of weeks. So they're light and playmakers in their defense. Even with Saleh back, I think it's undermanned to say the least. So I think the Cardinals are going to be battling potentially, at least they should, with the Los Angeles Rams for this division. And they have the luxury of playing like the AFC South. They have the luxury of playing teams like the Saints in third place schedule and a lot easier schedule than last year, to where they should be in the thick of things. If they take care of business against teams they should beat, that can change, throughout an NFL season. But the expectations after going 8-9, being knocked out of the playoff contention in Carolina last year,
Yeah.
I think they look to take the next step. So it's like, what's that look like? That's double-digit wins, even though Seattle was held out 10-win team last year. I think that puts them in a position to be fighting for a playoff spot, and that's the expectation from top of the organization to the fan base.
Bo Brock here is my guest on Inside the Vault. Bo, as we kind of wind down, and we are 4:05 start Eastern time for the Panthers on Sunday there in Glendale, Arizona. Panthers versus Arizona. Let me quickly about Jonathan Gannon. I'm really intrigued, because when he came over from Philadelphia, he had this kind of like suffocating defensive style of football that he brought with him. And obviously he's had to retool the roster a little bit. He's kind of got his guys in there. How is he viewed in Arizona when it comes to not just a head coach but a defensive guru, if you will? And does the fan base, are they behind him to get this done?
Totally. I mean, the fan base is completely bought into JG. You look at the overall record now, 13-22 through 35 games. I think that there was a lot of leeway to start because they understood the assignment. This was a team that was in a knockdown, tear down rebuild in 2023, and that they saw that they almost were ahead of schedule last year as far as the rebuild, but they saw the culture change, and they saw that this team being a draft and develop team, they saw kind of the light at the end of the tunnel. And Jonathan Gannon was the big guy leading the charge through the darkness, and Monty Ossenfort was right there, their general manager. So they see the direction of the team, and it's being led by JG. And I think even if they were to fall short of what we've outlined as far as expectations, I think his job here is secure. There's a lot of confidence that he's going to be the guy to get him back to playing winning football. That even when they were like not relevant, they were a team that was inconsistently in the thick of things. And I think Gannon, if given the right amount of time, can be the guy to completely change that, be more talked about as Bruce Arians was the most successful, coach in Cardinals history.
And then on the offensive side of the ball, for what the Panthers might see there, Drew Petzing, the offensive coordinator for the Arizona Cardinals, what does he bring specifically out of Kyler Murray? Obviously, with it almost feels like now Kyler is just getting back from that Achilles injury from a
Yeah,
few years ago, or ACL rather.
yeah.
What is Petzing's role, obviously, with that offense, and what has he brought with Kyler Murray?
Yeah, I think Petzing is a guy that he likes the physicality. He likes the efficiency from his offense. And Kyler Murray, like with Kyler Murray here, he's that got this unique skill set to where you almost want him to kind of take the restrictor plate off it and maybe dial up some more explosives downfield. And I think that that's what they're going to try to do throughout the season, not necessarily just Sunday, but they've got their calling card. It's establishing the run and trying to just put balls in playmakers' hands like Trey McBride and Greg Dortch and Michael Wilson and Marvin Harrison Jr. But I think he wants to have Kyler Murray benefit from the infrastructure around him and not have to play hero ball. But then when the time does come, if something breaks down, he can kind of turn to and tap into that unbelievable playmaking ability.
Yeah. I mean, Bryce Young, as we know for the Panthers, is 1-15 straight up on on the road so this is definitely going to be something. Obviously, he's going to have to overcome as his NFL career continues. You mentioned as the Panthers go on the road to face the Cardinals. You mentioned Tedero McMillan, the first year wide receiver for the Panthers, rookie out of Arizona. Obviously,
Yeah,
a bit of a homecoming for him. Obviously, having played at nearby Tucson, so I imagine he'll have a lot of fanfare there at the game. So you mentioned that matchup with Will Johnson. Is there any other matchups you're looking forward to in the game when it comes to one-on-one players, offense or defensive side of the ball?
yeah, sure. Absolutely. I mean, it's Horn and Marvin Harrison Jr. as you mentioned earlier. Does is he really going to travel? Because Marv's moving around quite a bit, and then what slot corner, safety, linebacking, is going to match up with Trey McBride because it doesn't seem to matter what opposing defenses throw at him. He's going to make plays for this offense. So yeah, you're looking at that, and can the Cardinals' offensive line kind of get back on track as far as trying to be a bully in the run game against a defense that's been vulnerable to it this week. So that's really what I'm looking for. It's a lot of the question marks, Ryan, as you can tell, is the offense, where the defense, there's a lot of trust there that they should be able to do what's necessary on their behalf.
Well, Cardinals trying to get to 2-0 for the first time since 2021. Do you have a prediction on the game? If you don't have one, that's fine. You can give me just kind of a
Sure.
general speaking. What is your thoughts, kind of how this game's going to turn out?
I do think that they take care of business, Ryan. I think that there's a lot of there's a bad taste that was left in their mouth last year when they went to Charlotte, and that there's going to be a team that's motivated, and they were able to survive in New Orleans with an ugly win, which is way better than a
A
good
lot.
loss, right? And I think
Right.
that the guys are looking to clean up the mistakes, and I think at home that this is where I really think that gives them an advantage is that they continue to maybe Bryce Young doesn't look as impressive as he did in Charlotte, and that they should be able to win and win handily. Maybe cover the 6.5 spread that's on this game currently.
All right, so you like the 6.5.
I do.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna say they don't cover the 6.5, but I do think Carolina. Um, for me, I went back and forth on this because I could easily see a way in which Carolina bounces back and they take care of business. Because whether we like it or not, I think these two teams are on equal playing field. I would agree with you that the rebuild is a little bit more obviously in the Arizona's favor, and they are playing at home. So for those factors, I could easily see the Cardinals winning this game, kind of like last week with the Jacksonville Jaguars. If you without those turnovers, it's a completely different game. But turnovers, as we know, a lot of these games come down to a couple plays. It's a game of inches in the NFL. I'm going to say the Panthers get it done by a field goal. I think it's going to be like a last second field goal late in the fourth quarter. Rookie kicker Ryan Fitzgerald's a great story here in Charlotte. He played at Florida State. He has a really big leg. And I think he's someone who is going to continue to have a fast start here in Carolina. So I'm going to say 20-17, a little bit lower scoring. But I'll say 20-17. Panthers get it done with the last second field goal. So,
Wow. Okay. All right.
um,
Yeah. Look, the home team fan base would be beside themselves furious if that's the outcome and they produce a 17-point performance. So I, I think it's not out of the realm of possibility, but I don't want to think about what that Monday morning looks like,
Yeah.
having to talk about it.
Yeah. All right, Bo. Well, it's been so good to have you here on Inside the Vault. Last question for you, kind of a fun one. For fans who might be listening to this podcast who have making the trip out to Arizona and Carolina to watch the Panthers. I will not be there, but for those who may be making the trip, where's good place to go kind of around the stadium? Well, give us what are some things to do when they're there in Arizona and in Glendale checking out the area.
Yeah, I mean, right next door is Westgate. Tons of restaurants, tons of bars, good food. You can go hang out, and you're just within walking distance of the stadium. So, if you're out here, I think the best place to stay in Phoenix and then make the game day travel out there to Glendale. Uber out there and then take advantage of all the walkable areas there. So it's decent. Like it is like it's still hotter than heck outside. So
Yeah.
it's a little, that's the thing, that's the challenge here, playing games early September, for those who like to tailgate.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Bo Brock, the host, Cardinals reporter, host of the PHNX podcast here on Inside the Vault. Bo, where can people find your work and what projects are you working on?
Yeah, we're just talking about this team every day. PHNX Cardinals. You can find us on YouTube, wherever you find your podcasts as well. 4:30 Pacific time, 7:30 there in the East. So, but if you want to catch us on replay, you can do it anytime. Check us out, PHNX Sports.
Awesome. Well, Bo, been so fun to get you back on the pod and chat Panthers Cardinals. Look forward to a great game on Sunday. Hopefully, yeah, I think hopefully it's a good game. I think both sides would obviously want that. No one likes to see a blowout either way. So let's hope for a good game on Sunday, and we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Ryan.
And that'll wrap us up here on episode 80 of Inside the Vault. Rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and we will see you next time.